You're listening to Flip Empire, the show committed to helping real estate entrepreneurs who want to build their empire without sacrificing their life. Your success and freedom starts now with your host, Alex Pardo.
What's going on? I want to welcome you guys to another episode on the Flip Empire show. I got my boy, a really good friend of mine, Mr. Mike Venereo, on the podcast. And I was just looking back here before we started recording. Mike, dude, I don't know if you know this, but you were on the show. I hope you know this. I hope it was memorable. Episode 310, Mike Venereo shares lessons learned on leadership, partnerships, hiring, team building, systems, and more. So guys, we will link up that podcast episode in the show notes after this. Definitely want you to check that out so you can get more of Mike. The guy is just a wealth of knowledge. He's been in real estate for 6.5 years as a real estate investor, and it's just incredible to see and witness the growth of his business and how he grows personally. Mike and I met well over a decade ago because we were both into personal development. We crossed paths and we had an instant connection and a vibe and a chemistry. And I had the opportunity many years ago to work with him. And it's just been awesome to watch his growth from building and scaling a wholesaling business to now focused on luxury development, short-term rentals, Airbnbs, etc. So we'll get into all that on the podcast, but I want you guys to have an open mind, open heart. And as always, just open your ears to what Mike has to share. Because again, the guy is a wealth of knowledge. So my man, as you're figuring out, I was sharing with Mike before the podcast episode, I wish I would record before we got going because there's so many bloopers that I've been able to accumulate throughout the last 7 years of me hosting this show, and Mike's camera was falling all over the place. So dude, it's great to have you back on the show, my man.
Thank you for having me, man. That's great that I kept up with my growth and influence to come back on the show. I'm not gonna lie. It's been episodes in the future, but I hope I got new knowledge to share with the audience. But if the bloopers continue happening, guys, it's my lighting and all the things that I'm trying to create here to give you guys the best experience, right?
It's all good, my man. We roll with the flow, man. We just rock with it. So yeah, dude. So you were on episode 310 and this is episode 698. So that was probably 4-ish years ago or so. Obviously, we're in 2023. So around that time, I want to say you had built up your wholesaling business and you were in the process of scaling, or you had already done so. But why don't we pick things up there? Because I remember you and I have been friends for a long time. And I remember when you really started to focus on hiring team members and acquisitions managers and all that. Talk to me about your experience in scaling the wholesaling operation in South Florida. And obviously things have evolved in the last year or two, and we're going to get to that. But I want to kind of first start the conversation there, man. Talk to me about your experience in growing that business and what was it that really drove you to want to scale a wholesaling and fix and flip operation?
Yeah. So, when I first got into real estate, I was working for another company, and what they were doing was a wholesale company, right? So everything that I learned was through the model of what they had created. When I ventured off on my own, I started first on just personally doing the acquisition, and my partner at that time, actually reverse, him doing the acquisition and my partner at the time, I was doing disposition. And so obviously you understand the business by doing the business. So in the beginning, I had to figure out how to acquire, how to dispo, how to do a transaction, how to take it from A to Z. And then once we did that for a couple of times, I would say maybe by like the 14th deal, somewhere around that range, I remember I had bought a property and it was our first luxury deal. And this deal ends up giving us on a wholesale fee about $225,000 more or less, right?
That was your net?
That was my net.
Incredible.
Right? And so when I got that, I kind of sparked me. I went from 7,000s that I was super excited about, 15,000s that I was super excited about, to getting this $225,000 deal. Obviously, at that point, I got super excited and I said, all right, let's start scaling. And the first thing I did was I hired a transaction coordinator / assistant at that moment. I remember I was talking to my attorney. I'm having lunch with him. I'm like, dude, I just made this deal. He helped me get it done. So obviously he knew what I made. And I'm like, dude, I just got this deal. Incredible amount. What should I do first? He's like, you got to stop doing everything is what you got to do first. And you got to start hiring people. Best thing I ever did was hire my personal assistant. So I was like, okay, sounds good. Obviously, I had no experience in hiring people. So I literally interviewed one person that somebody had referred to me, and they hired. Boom.
And that was it. That was the person.
That was it. Like, that was it. She was nice. She was, she seemed like she knew what she was doing. She was coming from a large company, but that was it. There was no, step 2. There was no second interview. I was like, all right, what's your experience? That's cool. That's awesome. Would you be interested in doing this? Yeah, I'm leaving my company. Awesome. Perfect. Done. You start next week. Fortunately, I was very lucky, and the person that I hired was incredible. So it worked out. I don't recommend that to everybody right now, because as I kept hiring, I did the same process, and it didn't work out the same way. So I would highly recommend, create hiring processes, do the right steps, get to know people, get to know the culture of the person, the personality type, because not everybody's going to fit in all positions of your company. But because my first one worked, I thought, oh, this is how I'm going to scale it. Not knowing much, that's the way I did it. So that was my first hire. I hire her. And from there on, I started realizing, if I can teach this to other people, can I find 5 $200,000 deals? Another $200,000. Can I scale myself? And I started scaling in the beginning, and that was actually the only way I scaled, was straight off the MLS, 100%. And because I had gone to so many Tony Robbins events, and I had gone to so many mindset events, I led my whole company on energy, right? It was 100% energy. I was the first one in the office. I would, give everybody a presentation in the morning. I would hype everybody up. I would get everybody excited. And then I would get everybody on the phone, and it was great. And I was at the office the whole day. I would communicate with everybody. So I literally built my whole company off energy and motivation, which is crazy, because I look back now and it's a whole different way to build things, right?
Yeah.
I look back now and there's a lot of other steps that you got to put, but it worked for me at the time. Market was extremely hot. There's a lot of inventory on the MLS, and the growth was able to happen.
Right. Well, man, I want to pause and just recognize you publicly on the show, because from the day that I met you, you've always been super ambitious, go-getter, like type A personality. And I think there's something to be learned from that short story that you just shared of how you got started scaling the business. You're a ready, fire, aim type of guy, right? Like you just talked about, like hiring your assistant, having no hiring process. Like you just interviewed somebody, you're hired, you're done. And it worked out for you. Great. And I'm sure there's stories. And if we had more time, we'll get into things where maybe that didn't serve you, right? But guys, I think there's something to be learned from what Mike just shared, in that when you want to do something, like fail forward, right? Like just do it, and you're going to learn so much more, in my opinion, in my experience, from the action that you take in doing something than by always trying to have everything figured out and the stars aligned. Because I'm here to tell you, to burst your bubble, it's not going to happen. Like it's never the right time to do something that makes you feel uncomfortable. And often that means you should be doing it. So I don't know if you have anything to add to that, man, but I just wanted to acknowledge you, dude, because you've always been someone that you set your sight on a goal, you know what you want, and you don't have everything figured out, but that doesn't stop you from actually doing something.
Yeah. So right now, first off, thank you for it, because I appreciate coming from a person like you. But the second thing I'll share about that is, in a weird way, my whole entire growth in business has been the same way. I don't recommend it to everybody, because there's a certain pressure and a certain grit of mentality that you have to have. And, as you get older, I would say it's probably not the best way to get things done. When I got in, I was younger. I had a little bit more. I had no children. That was another thing that also didn't exist at the moment. So
funny how that'll change things for you, right?
Oh, that'll change things really fast. So pressure and problems and, issues, it was almost like a fire for me. And I loved being in that fire. Today, it's a little different. It's a little different. I want to do things more thought out. I want to look at it. I want to calculate it. I want to see what's going to actually benefit me and not. I still love, creating problems and finding the solutions, because I think that's where growth really happens. If you are too protective, or are you too worried, or you're too fearful, most of the time you're not going to take it to that next level, right? Because you're only going to know what's inside of your comfort zone. And in the comfort zone, honestly, if you were not successful in your comfort zone, you're not going to be successful, out in it as well, right? Unless you get out of that comfort zone, you're going to stay stuck at the same level. So
agreed.
That fear cannot exist. But when I got into the development side, I kind of went in with the same mentality. And there is a different space. The problem is a lot bigger. The financials are a lot more invested. The worrying becomes a lot more aggressive. So I've had to learn, unfortunately, the hard way that, aim, fire, or what is it?
Ready, fire, aim.
Right. I'm more fire, and then aim, and then I'm like, oh shit, I got to get ready. Right. I reversed the whole process. And again, in the wholesaling, it wasn't as dangerous because you have a lot of things like inspection periods. You have clauses that you can get out. There's a lot of ways that once you get into these problems, you start finding solutions to exit out of. But when you're developing, it's a whole different space. You're already in it, and the problem might be too late. And, I've had to learn this last year and a half a lot. But again, in a weird way, getting myself into these problems, I feel, is going to accelerate my growth, because finding the solution, I've met so many good people. I've had to do things that 10-year-old developers probably haven't had to do. Right. So I've met people, I've learned abilities to move things quicker because of the issues that I got myself into,
Right. I hear you, man. Dude, there's so many questions I have for you, and so many things I want to unpack. And I want to start here. Many, many years ago, a friend of mine who's a pretty big thought leader and influencer in the space said something along the lines of, most entrepreneurs are too busy putting out fires, but what they don't realize is that they're the arsonist, right? Meaning that us as entrepreneurs are the ones that are like messing shit up, right? Like we're the ones that are causing problems. And you referenced that. Do you feel like when you kind of look back at your experience, do you feel like you're the one in your own business, like creating problems and wrecking things because you're so solutions oriented? Or are you referring to the fact that just in business problems are going to arise, and then at that point you aim to solve these problems? Like, do you think you're the arsonist to a certain degree, or are you referring to problems that just naturally happen in the course of business?
Yeah. So to answer that question correctly, it's both, right? In business, there's always going to be problems.
Right.
I've met people that are, ultra successful, and problems still exist, right? Even if they have a smooth operation, you would think you walk in and it's incredible. The problem's always going to be there, because every time you get to that next level, there's a new problem, right? If you're not getting to a new problem, then you're not pushing yourself enough, right? Because if you knew everything, then you're not going to that next level. But on the other side, I've put a lot of fires in my own way that, looking back, I could have avoided, right? By being a little bit more organized, by being having better rules in my business, by having better steps on how I want to take things, right? Because sometimes greed might kick in, and you start going, what? I know I probably shouldn't do it, but let's do it anyways. Because I think, on the other side, there's $100,000, there's $70,000, right? And then money, boom, clicks your greed. And now you forget a lot of maybe rules you had in your way that you were going to grow your business, or who you wanted to have in part of your circle, or what type of deals do you want to have. So greed, I believe, is one of those factors that creates that fire for you. And then you have to now create a solution. So to answer that question correctly, I think it's both. I would probably say at the beginning stages, I was more the guy creating the fires. Now, I think I'm a little bit more controlled. I'm looking at a bigger picture. I have a more detailed process of what I want. And now I'm just running into these new problems. Because, when you're going from rehabbing a house to building ground up $1 million plus home, these are two different animals, right?
Of course,
you're used to taking out a bathroom, putting in a bathroom. Now you're talking about building footers, creating walls, and designing a whole house. Two different processes. So, you're obviously going to have a new problem that you have to figure out.
Yeah. Well, man, there's only but so many times that you put your hand on the hot stove until you figure out like, hey, that hurts. I'm not going to do that again. So kudos to you for just the growth and the awareness that you have that back earlier on in your days. You were the arsonist, and now you've learned from some of those mistakes. By the way, I set you up with that question because I personally know you, and I knew you were going to be honest, real, and transparent about it. Any entrepreneur that tells me they've never been an arsonist, I just wouldn't believe, because you're right. The right answer is it's both. Like I'm guilty of, even to this day, sometimes creating my own fires. And then I look back and I'm like, why did I do that? Like I've put my hand on that stove before. I should know better. So it's just, guys.
I'm not going to lie, Alex, I still ask myself that question sometimes, right? There's still problems that I think, maybe it's not going to catch me this time, and it catches me, right? Because again, there's other factors that sometimes you overlook, certain rules that you have for yourself, and I'm not going to say only in business, right? I can say this in family. I can say this in fitness. I can say this in friendships. There's certain times that you overlook certain things that your intuition is telling you, hey, be careful with, but other factors kick in and you still make the move. So to this day, I still sometimes ask myself, like, damn, how did I get here again, right? Yeah. It might be a little different, so it might be masked a different way. But when I sit down and look at the real root, I'm in the same exact situation I was, a couple of months ago, that I said, all right, I'm never going to do this one again, right?
Yeah. Guys, that's why it's so important to a previous episode not so long ago. I talked about Monday morning quarterbacking, right? Like in the NFL and football, there's something called the Monday morning quarterback. You go back into the film room the day after the game and you analyze what went well, what didn't, what can I learn, right? Like you study the film. As entrepreneurs, there's value in doing that. There's value at looking at your past experiences and saying like, damn, I messed up there. I screwed up there. Or this is what I did well. Or what can I do different? So that there's value in going back and then having these types of conversations that Mike and I are having now on the podcast, and surrounding yourself with the right people in different mastermind communities, being very open about the challenges and having people pour into you. There's so much value in that, guys. Well, dude, I want to start to transition now. If I remember correctly from what you shared with me back in the day, and I might have this wrong, so correct me if this is not the case, but with that company, you were doing 10, 15 deals a month-ish at certain points, right? 6-figure profits. What happened that you're no longer running and operating that type of business?
Yeah, so we got to the point where we had about 15 employees between transaction coordinator, disposition, acquisition. So we had a fairly big team. And I'm going to be honest with you, there was a couple of things that happened, right? First off there was a certain dynamic that started getting created in the company through some people that I had chosen to kind of bring in. And that was probably the first phase, right? The first phase was there was a certain dynamic that I had originally created where it was more of a family, we're friends, we're building together. And as I started growing, I started bringing in a little bit more of like shark style salespeople. And yes, in one way, it's great because they're producing money, they're producing income, they're giving you new opportunities. But sometimes it might create a dynamic that might not fully work on growing and expanding the company. So I would say first phase was that. Second phase was my whole business was built off the MLS. And so if the MLS didn't have inventory, I never shifted to the off-market world.
Yeah, direct to seller.
I was in the portion and in the process of almost getting there. And when COVID strikes, the real estate market slows down, right? Across the board for like good 6 to 9 months, maybe almost a year. The market slows down in the sense of buyers are nervous, lenders are pulling out, and inventory is becoming short, as it is right now on the on-market world, right? Off the MLS. Direct to seller, off-market, there's an influx of properties. But because I didn't have that arm built out yet, my team little by little started kind of falling apart. one by one. There wasn't the income that we were making. Deals weren't being done as much.
Yeah.
I was buying more because I realized that the market slowed down. So I started buying personally in order to either rehab, and then organically I fell into this development world. And when that started happening, I don't know, I took a time to sit and say, okay, hold on. I've been doing this for about 3-4 years. Time wasn't on my side, right? Money was on my side, but time wasn't on my side as I was building this wholesale company.
Yeah.
And I just sat there and I said, okay, cool. What is this where I want to come back? Because if I'm going to come back, like anything I do, I'm going to come back full force. Or is there other ways? Oh, blooper number 1. Sorry. Is there other ways
all good
that we can make money? And so I started talking to different people. I started meeting different people. And I started realizing that, all right, real estate is not only wholesaling. That's not the only avenue.
Right. It's not the end all be all.
Right.
Yeah.
And I started getting to know more of the heavy hitters in the wholesale world, and started asking myself, okay, is that the end product that I truly want? And the answer at that moment for me was no. Mm-hmm. And when I realized that, yes, there's money to be made, but is it the lifestyle that I want? Okay. I didn't want it. And so I started buying. That year I went crazy and I ended up buying like 11 properties, like back to back. I'm talking about maybe in a 6-month window.
This was what, end of 2020, 2021-ish?
2021-ish.
Yeah.
And ending of 2020, beginning of 2021, I just started buying Buena Vista, Little Havana, Coconut Grove. I had houses on 52nd Street, Homestead. I went on like a buying spree. I said, all right, cool. You know what? I'm going to buy a bunch of real estate. If I can't sell them, I'll turn them all into rentals.
Ready, fire, aim, my man. There it is again.
Ready, fire, aim. And, some of them had liens. Some of them had violations. Some of them had demo orders. They were right prices. I said, I'll figure this out. And so that shift happened at that moment. It was just a question that I asked myself. And again, listen, everybody has their own journey. Everybody has their own outcome in business. Just what I had done for the last 4 years, I sat there and I realized, like, I don't want to do this anymore. This is not what I want the next 8 years of my, I make money, but I have to be at the office the way I built it. I have to be on top of everybody. I have to be dealing if the deal's falling apart, if it's closed. So that was just the answer that I gave myself. Right. And so I started, venturing off into other worlds. Now, the second thing or the third thing that happened was when I started venturing into other worlds, I started meeting different people. And the conversations became different. And then now people were like, oh, you built that house. The house is so beautiful. It was in a luxury world. And now the people I'm talking to are worth, 5 million, 10 million. As a wholesaler, my group was different. And so then that was like, you know what? I'm done. I'm good.
Yeah, dude, let me jump in now because I want to have a separate conversation about your experience as a developer, particularly in the luxury property. I want to hear more about those conversations and the high net worth individuals that you're networking with. But dude, I feel like I'd be a bad host if I didn't dive in a little bit deeper into the first challenge that you had with your wholesaling company. You talked about the fact that at first it was kind of like the culture. You didn't use the word culture, but that's my word. But like the culture was family. And then you talked about, you started hiring some shark type team members that were great at sales, but what sounded like it was a violation of your culture, right? Or
Correct.
It started to shift and change the culture.
Correct.
Is the reason you did that because you didn't have certain hiring practices? Maybe you did or didn't have core values that you were hiring by, leading by, managing by, et cetera? Did you have clear, defined core values and were you hiring based on those core values, or were you purely hiring on that person's sales experience to just generate more revenue?
Yeah, so I had semi-core values. I didn't have them where I would interview a specific way. So I knew the type of people I wanted, but it wasn't concrete in my mind that if they don't fit, I'm not hiring them. And then that was my problem, right? I met a few people. I got to know them, liked their energy, liked their work ethics, came into the company right out of the whole, making money, deals flowing, brought something that in a way I was excited about, but started creating a specific, I don't know, energy.
Yeah, dynamic. Yeah, the energy.
It started creating a specific energy, and I knew it. But again, because money was flowing, I was kind of like, I'm going to be okay with it. I'll try to tame it.
Yeah.
And so looking back, should have never done that. Should have always stuck to my rules because my team was awesome. And even these people are still, they're awesome, but they just didn't mesh together. Yeah. And I couldn't get them to mesh together because my first group, I looked for one specific, and then when I started changing that group, but in my mind, it was a different type. Like if they were all Wolf of Wall Street's type, hey, then the whole team would have been that. But I didn't hire in the beginning Wolf of Wall Streets, and then I started coming after Wolf of Wall Streets. Two different dynamic. Not everybody fits in the Wolf of Wall Street. Yeah.
I have this image right now of you like in this corporate office, like hopping on a table and screaming, "I'm not going anywhere!"
That's right.
Oh, man, that's a crazy movie if you guys haven't seen it. So, dude, what would you say is the takeaway? What would you share as a takeaway for those listening and watching? What's the piece of advice, if you had to distill it down to one piece of advice that you would say, hey, based on this experience, what I just shared, this is what I would recommend you do and or don't do?
Yeah. So what I will recommend you do is be very, very clear in the team that you want to build, right? Because at the end of the day, you're going to be the leader. They're going to follow you. And you're going to create a specific culture and a specific energy around the team that you want to build, right? After you build these people, the worst thing in building a team is having to let go of people and then rebuild it, right? Ideally, you try to keep these people for as long as possible. It's sales, so it's a tough space to keep no matter what. Yeah. So the better you build that culture, the better you build that leadership, and the better you build that, vision that everybody is aligned to, the more growth and the less problems you're going to have in your business.
That's right.
So sometimes, you got to eliminate the greed. I would say greed is probably the biggest factor that probably steps in and creeps in and kind of screws things up. And then, not caring, right? Because sometimes you're building these teams because, I just want to make money. I just want to sell more real estate. I want to do this. Right. But you got to truly care about, am I taking this core group that's going to back me up and I'm going to make their lives better? Am I really going to, spill my energy into this person for their life to be better? It's not all about me. It can't be all about me because people will sense that sooner or later and they're going to leave your company, right? Whether they're salary paid or they're commission based, they're going to sense it. And if they get a better opportunity, they're going to jump and it's gone. That's it. It's over. They might stay as long as that next opportunity doesn't arrive.
Right.
And so you got to care and you got to be clear with what you want to build because long term, you're building a family. You're spending more time in that office at the beginning, of the business growth than you're spending with your own family. So, be very specific with who you want to have in your space constantly and don't let those, I'm not going to call them rotten apples, but don't let those, different styles to pop in because the bad energy will move a lot faster than the good energy that you're creating.
Whether you realize it or not, there's a culture in your company. I don't care if you're a one man or one woman show, or if you have a team of 15, 20 people, there's a culture that exists within your business. The question is, are you intentional about the type of culture you have? And to Mike's point, the people you bring in will either align with that culture or will completely shift it. Right. And so at the end of the day, it's your responsibility because you're the one that brings them in. So hire on core values. I heard Mike talk about greed. Mike, would you, before I transition here, would you also say that ego maybe played a factor in it for you? Was there any ego there, or it was purely dollars and cents for you at that time?
Probably dollars and cents at that time. Maybe, the ego has never been like if I asked my crew, maybe ego was something that I couldn't see. Right. But if I were to say what I thought, it was more what? I'm going to overlook the problems. We're making money. We're growing. That's what we're in this business for. Right. And long term, obviously it didn't work out. So I can tell you not the process to take, right?
Yeah. Dude, what my experience, man, and I think you'll agree with me, is that people can make money in a lot of different places. So you might attract someone because of the opportunity. They might be attracted to you and your business because of the opportunity to make money. But I can tell you firsthand, they will stay because of how you treat them and the culture that exists within your business. So you were speaking my language when you started talking about the fact that you got to care. You got to lead with your heart. And I truly believe that. So, man, as we start to kind of wind down here in the show, I want to talk about luxury, because your first big 200K plus pop was on a luxury property, I think I heard you say. And then you decided to jump. You started buying a bunch of properties in 2021. When I think of a luxury new build in today's market, I don't want to say that scares me, but that kind of scares me a little bit. Right? Like, I see a lot of potential risk there. Just yesterday, I was on your Instagram and I saw your story of this, what is it, an 18-unit building, Mike?
20.
A 20-unit building, which you have completely remodeled. I mean, I think it's been a full gut rehab for you, right?
Correct.
It looks beautiful. By the way, the work that Mike does, guys, I know I've been in this business, I don't know what, 17, 18 years, whatever it is. And I know a ton of fix and flippers and rehabbers. When my wife and I bought the home that we live in now, I went to Mike to see if he can help me handle the rehab. So all the people I could have gone to, Mike was like one of the top at the list, because I know him, I trust him, the relationship we have, and because he puts out quality work. So talk to me, man, about why you decided to get into luxury new builds. And the second part of that question is there any concern about any potential uncertainty in the market, rising interest rates, supply and demand? Like, is there any part of the market that concerns you when it comes to luxury new builds and developments?
Yeah. So how I fell into the luxury space was, I would probably say it happened almost by mistake. It wasn't even something that I had personally designed. And the way it worked out was the first deal that I had purchased, I purchased in an area called Buena Vista, which is an area here in Miami. It's an up and coming area. And I knew a specific investor that was, remodeling and rebuilding in that area. So I knew two people. I knew one guy would tell me, nope, I'm only going to buy it from you. And then I knew another guy that I was like, I think I can partner with this guy. So I've always loved the development side and the interior design side, right? So I'm the guy that's like always looking at, Pinterest and looking at high-end designs. And I'm looking at, I'm always looking, if you look at my IG, it's a lot of these high-end homes and all these things I've always wanted to do. But same as what you just said, I had like a fear, and I'm not going to lie to you, the fear is still there for a certain amount of money, which I'm stepping myself out of by just saying, you know what, I'm just going to buy it there and I'll deal with it later, right? I'm going to shoot and then
ready, fire, aim.
I'll get ready and then I'll aim, right? Because I went from 300 to 500 to $1 million to now I'm building a $5.4 million home to now I'm searching at like, how do I buy a property at 2.5 that I can sell at 9, right? I'm not saying that the fear is not there, but the moment you do that one bigger one and it went well, you go, okay, cool. If that one went well, there's another one that can go well. And that's kind of how it went in. So, I partner with this guy and together we start designing these luxury homes, right? He had one arm of it. I had another arm of it. Together, we start putting our ideas together and we sell these homes and we're breaking the records. So every time we would put a house in the market, we were like over by $100,000. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we had COVID timing backing us up. So that was a little bit of a booster on confidence.
For sure.
But even the houses that, we had two houses on the market at the exact same time, we're selling for 70 grand over. They're semi as nice as ours. And so we realized, dude, we have something good going on here.
And let me ask you really quick, don't lose your train of thought, but what do you attribute that to? Were you just putting out a better, higher quality product, a finished product in rehab? Or was it your marketing? Like what do you attribute you guys getting the premium relative to?
So I would attribute that to the details.
Okay.
So when we were competing to a rehabber that got into the luxury space, and we were a luxury space in a luxury space. So what do I mean by that? When you look at luxury homes, you see the detail in stuff, right? The AC vents are different. The finishes are better. The kitchens are more quality. When you see a rehabber trying to get into the luxury space, they almost come in with that rehab mentality, right? Cheap, try to go as affordable, but they want to sell at the highest price. So there's like this middle ground that they're trying to get in, but they haven't figured it out, right? So we were getting designs of a $5 million home and saying, how do we put this on a $1.2 million house? Cheaper cost, obviously, but where somebody walks in and get the feeling of a $5 million home. Right? Yeah. We're not giving you the $5 million home, but hey, look at the way that they did that kitchen. Look at the way that they finished that floor. Yeah. Can we find that floor at a fair price and bring it to this house? It might not be the same floor because that might be exported, imported from Italy or something, but we can find the mimic of it and then give the feeling of it. So when the $1.4 million buyer walks in, says, wow, this is it. I want it and I'll pay you more money. So I had to learn that because I was coming from the remodel a house in Miami Gardens. You're not really focusing on detail here. You're trying to get in and out, get done, make the most money.
Put it on the market. Yeah.
Correct. So I had to also adjust. And like I said, my partner brought a lot to me and then I brought a lot to him. And so once I started doing these type of houses, then I started meeting different people. The clients were different. The people I was talking to was different. So that also created another, and that was something that I was interested in. Has nothing to do with the business, but it was something that triggered in me, like, man, I want to grow more into the space, right? Because if they say that you are the 5 closest friends of your life,
the average of the 5.
The average, right, of your 5 closest friends of your life. Then I started asking myself, man, if this was my circle, which is starting to be created within the last year and a half, then if I'm the average of these 5 guys, my dad used to tell me this all the time, right? He used to tell me in Spanish, dime con quien tú andas y te diré quién tú eres, right? And I used to be like, what's this old man saying, man? He doesn't even know. Then I hear it in seminar, huh?
He's right.
He was right. He was super right. I wish I would have listened a little and not been such a rebellious individual. But, I'm starting to understand that now. And so because I was in that space, I was like, wow, look at the clients I'm meeting. Look at the way they look at buying. Look at what they're doing. Look what they do for businesses. And so that was like a caveat to getting more into the luxury space. Yeah. So the way we got out of the fear was, again, I think COVID played a big role in what was happening. When COVID hit, Miami hit the market, right? It hit the map. It had never hit the map the way that Florida in general has hit the map today. And when it hit the map, we had so many exit strategies. We said we can either sell it, we can turn it into a luxury short-term rental, we can rent it as a high-end furnished product. Like I had so many exits that I had looked into that I was fearless at that moment. Because I said, if I don't sell it, I can cash flow, 5 figures a month on it. If I don't get 5 figures a month on it, I can rent it to a high-end person that'll pay me 5 figures a month for it because of the finishes and the way we're leaving these. So I was like, there's no losing here. And of course, when I was buying really cheap in the sense of older homes, demoing and building, my equity was through the roof. So I've been able to burr every single one of my new constructions and be zero money into the deals today,
Yeah. Man, one of the things I want to be more mindful of as a host is you and I both know what the burst strategy is, but for somebody that maybe is listening that didn't catch what you just quite said, explain in just a minute or less, like what is the burr method or the burst strategy?
Yeah, so the burr method is a genius invention of letters to create a model, which is buy, rehab, rent, refi, or buy, rehab, refi, rent, repeat. And so what you're trying to do in this strategy is buy a property, if possible, if it's a rehab, right? If it's possible, buy it at about 50%. So then you can put 20% of work to upgrade this property. So when the ARV, which is the after repaired value, the fully remodeled valuation of the property, where you can refinance 70%, which is most of the time what every lender is going to give you, your all-in cost, meaning purchase, down payment, lending cost, rehab cost, your whole all-in cost in the property is 70%.
Right.
So at that point, when you do that refinance at the final product, you're taking out 100% of your money. So now you own a brand new remodeled home or a brand new constructed home at $0 out of your pocket because you recovered everything that you had in this deal. And now you're cash flowing practically infinity profits.
Yeah, just make sure, obviously, you factor in whatever the interest rate is at the time, or even factor in if it goes higher. Make sure that you can service the debt and that you're not putting yourself in a tight spot, obviously. So
correct. Yeah, if you're going to refinance it, look at what your mortgage payment is, what your taxes are, what your insurance, what your cost is, and then look at your rent. Because we're doing, short-term rentals, it obviously, 10x, I would say 4x is the average rent. And so that is like rental on steroids, and that's made all the deals, flow very nicely.
Yeah. Dude, what I pulled out of what you just shared is preparation breeds confidence and destroys fear. And that kind of just came to mind. And what I mean by preparation breeds confidence is you said you were fearless because you had all these different exit strategies that you had thought through.
Correct.
Right? Like you could short-term rental, you could sell, you could do, like you had all these different things. So you thought through the exit before you even got into the deal. And that's such a valuable lesson for people listening. And maybe that's part of the reason that you might still have a little bit of fear about the uncertainty of the market, but you're still moving forward because you have multiple exits on these different properties, right? So talk a little bit about the importance of just what having multiple exits does, particularly as it relates to this market that, interest rates might be rising, might be falling. Like there's that uncertainty that people have about this market.
Yeah. So because I have the wholesale background and I have the deal finding mentality, that helped me a lot when it came to buying properties. So not everybody is going to have the exact same deal finding mentality that I have. So sometimes you look at a deal and you think, oh, that's a semi good deal, so I'm going to take it. My mindset was like, there's enough inventory for all of us to eat as investors. Yeah. So cherry pick the ones that really make sense. I don't want to blow up, right? That's not anything that I want to happen in my real estate career. So how do I protect myself is by being in this strategy where when I refinance, I'm refinancing at a 70, 68, 72%. Why? Because if I believe that this market's going to correct, which I don't think Florida, Miami, long term will ever correct itself to 10-year prices ever, right? That's my belief. I think to myself, don't try to buy everything. I'm not that type of fund. Buy things that are quality deals that have multiple exit strategies in them. And so because I have that deal finding mentality, and I think that there's an abundance of deals out there, I don't just jump on any deal. There's been a lot of deals that I've probably passed that I should have taken, but because I only saw one strategy out, it wasn't what I wanted at that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. And man, how I want to end this is, your mindset, guys, for those of you listening, your mindset creates your expectations create your reality. What Mike just said is there's an abundance of deals out there because he truly believes that at his core. There's always going to be an abundance of deals flowing to him. And conversely, if Mike was like, man, this is a tough market, interest rates are at what they're at, there's no deals out there, guess what? It's going to be challenging for him to get deals out there. So if you take anything from all the wisdom Mike has shared in this last 45 minutes or so, but you just walk out with an elevated, improved, or upgraded mindset about what's possible, regardless of the market conditions, you're going to be a better investor, entrepreneur, and just overall person as a result of that. So just make sure that you're constantly upgrading your belief systems and at some points challenging and questioning your belief systems, because just because you haven't been able to accomplish something or do something, it doesn't mean it's not possible. So really start to take inventory, do a thought audit of what you believe is possible and isn't possible, regardless of what market cycle we're in. So my man, where can people reach out to you, connect with you, start to build a relationship and just kind of follow your journey?
Yeah, so you guys can follow me on Instagram. It's Mike V Experience. And that's the best channel that you can get me on because that's the one I use the most. I wanted to finish off on what Alex said. There's a strategy, and not a strategy, but a thought pattern that I've been listening to for many years. And every day I'm implementing it more and more. And it's the be, do, have, right? Yeah. And most of us think as we have to have or we have to do in order to be. And so, what he was explaining when I said the abundance, right? In other areas of my life, I don't feel that way. And I have to keep reminding myself that it's going to be, there's something that Tony Robbins says that today more than ever, I am implementing in my life. And it's where focus goes, energy flows.
Yeah.
And what does he mean by that, right? Where your attention is going, where your awareness is going, somehow the world, right? And it's not somehow, there's an actual mental thing that happens that will attract it to you, right?
Yeah.
And so if you're thinking that you're scared, use that as a trigger to remind you that, hey, this is the time for me to shift the thought, right? Because instead of saying, oh, I'm scared or I'm worried or I'm depressed or I'm bitter or whatever, try to become aware of that moment when it's happening, to be like, oh, thank you for reminding me, brain, that's doing its own thing at this moment, right? It has its own programming that I did many, many years ago. Thank you for reminding me that this is what I'm thinking, and let me alter it. You can use words like cancel. You can use words like, do something funny, hit yourself in the face so you can break the pattern, whatever you want to do. I don't know what you want to do. You can create something. But definitely, you'll notice that once you start believing that you're a good fitness person, you're a good father, you're a good mother, you're a good friend, you're a good business owner, there's a lot of deals or whatever else you guys do, if it's outside of the business of real estate, you'll start realizing that you'll start, attracting the people, the opportunities, the money, right? Because the big challenge that everybody has in real estate is I don't have enough money.
Right.
There's a lot of money out there that's saying I don't have enough deals. So you guys can become best friends and create a beautiful relationship, but you have to start working internally in order to create that external. And like I said, guys, I don't have this in all areas of my life, but today more than ever, as I became a dad recently of two, beautiful daughters, and my life started, shifting in that way. My business got a little crazier because I got into developments. And I had to really start noticing like, oh shit, there's a lot of things that I'm limiting myself with and probably causing more problems around me because of those thoughts.
Yeah.
And so I'm digging into that mental growth, because no matter how hard you think something is, if you shift it inside, it will get easier.
Yeah,
and
man.
so,
Your external world is created by your internal world.
Yeah, so it's a result of your internal world. Like the external world and your external thoughts are like a movie screen of what you're going through internally, right? So if you think that's, oh man, why is this happening to me? Don't look at it externally. Say, all right, cool. What am I doing here that's
100.
creating that? The outside show is already happening. And that's a program probably when you were 9 years old, you're not going to get to that outside show right now. But if you start internally shifting, the movie screen, then outside you start going, wow, look at this new person I brought into my life. Look at this opportunity I brought. Look at this friend I bought. Look at this, chance that somebody gave me. And so right now, more than ever, I'm implementing that, so thank you for putting it out there, Alex, because I truthfully believe that's the difference between the elite and the average and the zombies, right?
Yeah, bro. I co-sign in every last word you just said, man. And I think that's a perfect way to wrap this one up, dude. I really appreciate you for hopping back on here 4+ years later, whatever it's been. Again, it's been really cool, my man, as a friend, to just kind of watch your growth and evolution. And I admire that ready, fire, aim approach and mindset that you kind of bring to business and different areas of your life. And you've modified it, and you're learning from, certain times when that can maybe kind of go south on you. But dude, I admire just the tenacity that you bring, I guess is what I'm trying to share. So guys, reach out to Mike on Instagram at Mike V Experience. And I just so appreciate you for supporting the show. Not possible for me to be doing this 7+ years without your support, without those of you who subscribe, leave a review in Apple Podcasts, and or just share the content with friends or people that you think could benefit from this. So connect with us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. We'd love to start a dialogue with you if you have any questions. And with that being said, I will look forward to connecting with you on the next show. Take care. One last thing before you go, if you have been listening to the show for a while and or you have been getting value from the show, I would be 100% honored if you would share this show with a friend, or maybe share it with somebody that you think could benefit from this. It's my mission, it's my cause, it's my purpose through Flip Empire to impact and touch people's lives, to help people and in their businesses. So it would be an honor if you would be willing to share this episode. And one last thing, make sure that you're subscribed so that you get notified every Monday and Thursday when shows get released. I look forward to connecting with you on the next one. Until then, have a great day.